Welcome to Crunching Tackles, where we break down the hardest hitting social issues in sports. On today's show, we recap some of the major sporting events we've missed over the past weeks and continue to anticipate the World Cup. My name is Chad Wiley, and with me, as always, is John Nekrasov. And John, I need to just throw the rundown right away from the beginning. I'm pulling an audible here because I think people who know me might be wondering, Chad, why on a Tuesday evening at 7:30 p.m. are you sitting in your house in Nightdale podcasting instead of a few miles down the road at the Lenovo Center watching game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals featuring your hometown team in person? And the short answer to that question is because of capitalism, and I'm upset about it. I am.
Coming out with the Zoran Mamdani agenda from the top rope. Tell us more. What happened to you this week, Chad?
What happened to me is my wife and I spent a good amount of time planning like a pretty like not like a financial like sacrifice, but like planning to devote a pretty decent chunk of my personal income to attend the Stanley Cup final.
It was a budget
And
category. Like we talked about this, yeah.
yeah, like I
Yeah.
was willing to spend a lot of money, and I was still completely priced out of the Stanley Cup. The ticket prices were going for like four times more what they were going in just the last round of the playoffs, let alone regular. Like, we're talking like 10, 15 times more than regular season prices and 4 times more than the round, like the previous round of the playoffs. And frankly, I think it's wrong because I think that there are many regular middle class, diehard loyal fans of these teams who are the ones who should be getting these tickets. And instead, like across all sports, we're seeing it. We've talked about a lot of FIFA. Instead, like big and important sporting events are treated like luxury items for the ultra rich. And obviously there are, like, this is a high like science area. There are plenty of wealthy people who can afford to go to these games and pay the 4 figures necessary, and frankly, good for them. But sports used to be for everyone. And instead, I think you have a huge percentage of like, your base, the people who, come to 2 or 3 or 4 regular season games a year, bring their families, save up for that, who care about this team, who watch a lot, who have just no shot, not even a chance to experience these like top tier, these like important events because again, ticket prices are opening and you have to pay a minimum of 4 figures per ticket just to get into the building. And I don't like it.
Yeah, I mean it's terrible. We've talked about this with the World Cup a great many times, obviously. And I think it'll be an interesting indicator of the limits of this strategy that is continuing to grow. Obviously, sports are just are a high demand item, and people worry. Our sport's going to die. Our audience is moving away from sports. The answer is no, and the increase in price is a reflection of that demand. And I think it's interesting. Like I was thinking about this in the context of NFL stadiums. The newest stadium in the NFL is going to be the Titan Stadium, and they're actually downsizing. Like is going to have less capacity than the current one because they know that they can give a higher premium experience and charge more by actually making it less available to a larger amount of people. I think the World Cup is going to be an interesting example because we'll get to the format later, but there are 48 teams. There are a lot of games. And with the Club World Cup last year, FIFA really tried to raise prices and it just completely backfired and no one went to those games. If something like the World Cup, ends up in a similar situation, I think it might be a warning sign that like we've reached the outer limits of what people are willing to tolerate. But it's just difficult when you're in a situation where, a final, you have 3 or 4 games in a city. That's not that many. You're not really testing the demand that much. Like the whole region of the Eastern Seaboard, if they're interested in a Stanley Cup final, could theoretically go there, and then Vegas is across the country. So I don't know. It sucks, but it's also like what do we do about it? Is
Yeah,
kind
I
of where
mean,
I'm starting to land. Like,
I guess like the mass of the middle class could just decide like we're just not going to pay for these tickets. But again, I still think that they just get bought up as luxury items. You have people who aren't even like we talk about with the Super Bowl. Like the majority of Super Bowl tickets are sold not to fans of either team, but just to like corporate entities and people who use these events as like a status item. It's like buying a handbag or a watch. I bought a Super Bowl ticket. It's the same thing. It decentivizes like fandom and actual like rooting interest, and it incentivizes just treating sports like any other luxury item.
right. This is a completely different experience from the Champions League final, which we'll get to shortly, that took place in Budapest, Hungary this last weekend. Arsenal and PSG fans turned out in droves for that soccer game in Europe. And the atmosphere was incredible because there were real fans in there. Like, there were thousands and thousands of real fans in the European equivalent of the Super Bowl. And the atmosphere was like, it was actually like, it felt like, either team could have had a home game there. And the Super Bowl just never feels that way to me. It,
Yeah, but
it
again,
feels like a corporate event.
there were fan tickets sold for the Champions League final for 70
Exactly.
euro.
Yeah, exactly.
70.
But that's what I mean.
Yeah, it's
Like, it is
you're
a
right.
choice.
Hmm.
It does
Yeah,
not have to be this way.
I don't want people to feel bad for me like oh I deserve to go like Megan and I we do fine for ourselves but like when I don't know I was willing to like really like lay out a chunk of money for this and I was still ultimately like hundreds of dollars short. Yeah, it's just like it's really crazy when like the morning after the Hurricanes qualify for the Stanley Cup final, you go onto Ticketmaster and see that the cheapest price to get into the door is over $1,100.
It's just astonishing, genuinely. Like, it's
That is
crazy.
so much money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, um, all that to say, I'm going to enjoy these Hurricanes games from the comfort of my home and root hard for them. And it's great to have an actual championship atmosphere back in the state of North Carolina and the city of Raleigh, the city I'm born and raised in. The Hurricanes, of course, won the 2006 Stanley Cup exactly 20 years ago. The captain of that team is the head coach of the current team, and it's great. I'm rooting hard for the Hurricanes, and it's gonna be a fun 2 weeks here in the Raleigh area.
Yeah, this is a pro Hurricanes show, just in general, even though obviously I don't live there. Yeah, I wish you all the best.
Thank you,
How do
thank
you
you.
feel? Like, what's the vibe meter right now? I know the Golden Knights are relatively good.
Yeah, I think if it had been if you had told me that we could play the Golden Knights like in the Stanley Cup final at the beginning of the playoffs, I would have taken that pretty easily because our regular season record is significantly better than the Golden Knights. We have home rink advantage. Like games 1 and 2 are here in Raleigh. Um, but what the Golden Knights have done in the playoffs, and especially in the last round against the Colorado Avalanche, was very impressive. I think they are a very formidable team. However, the Hurricanes have only lost one game this entire playoffs. They have won 12 and lost. They're 12-1 in the playoffs this year. So it is hard to not feel at least pretty optimistic about our chances given how consistently dominant we've been through all three rounds. And Montreal was a good team, a tough team. And after we lost game one, but we hadn't played for 12 days before that because we had swept the previous round. We had almost 2 weeks off. And so after we shook the rust off, we basically won four straight again. So feeling good, feeling good. Game one will be a good test. I'm sure this will be a fun atmosphere. And maybe what I'll be able to do is if they do a away game watch party at the Lenovo Center and it's cheap, maybe I'll go to that. Maybe that would be a good second option for me.
Yeah, it reminds me of our Liberty March Madness days when we would pack out our
Yeah,
basketball arena to watch televised March Madness, which was a great time.
that's right. That's right.
Admittedly, I feel like those environments actually sometimes can be, because they're more for the people, actually sometimes end up being like a better atmosphere than the actual game if it's
Yeah,
like this deep in a tournament. So anyway,
yeah, yeah. So we'll see.
I'm excited for you guys. I'm sorry that you can't go, but we're all rooting for Carolina. Vegas is a plastic franchise, and I don't want them to win.
100%. John, your one of your teams that you support was part of what social media has described as the great sports hate watch day. Are you familiar with this?
I am familiar with this. I experienced it
Um,
in many forms throughout this
yeah,
weekend.
a lot of people were woke up on Saturday, May 31st or May 30th, with the intent to hate watch Arsenal at noon against Paris Saint-Germain,
Mm-hmm.
and then hate watch the Oklahoma City Thunder against the San Antonio Spurs at 8 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Eastern time. And in both cases, the quote unquote hated clubs did fall. And that does mean that your Arsenal did fall in the Champions League to Paris Saint-Germain. I wanted to, on behalf of the podcast, wish you our sympathies, and then just open the door to um, any venting or processing or just whatever it is in this time that you need.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I would say, first of all, like, I think it's unquestionable that Arsenal have had a tremendously successful season. Um, and as a result, people love to hate us and really enjoyed that hate watch. Um, I think there are a lot of things that we can call out, and I think are interesting topics to discuss just briefly on the show. But I think the biggest thing, just like the game itself, was fascinating in a lot of ways. I'm curious what you thought. Obviously, it was very much a PSG attack versus Arsenal defense game for the majority of it. Arsenal went ahead early. PSG equalized through a penalty about midway through the second half. We went through a full 30 minutes of extra time with no breakthrough. And finally, it was decided on penalties, with Gabriel missing the decisive penalty kick with the last kick of the game. So it was tight all the way through. PSG, which, unquestionably has the best attack in the game right now, looked completely devoid of ideas. They really did not create a single meaningful attack other than the penalty that they converted. Um, and I think that is a testament to just how well disciplined of a team we are. Um, but it reminded me a lot of, this might have been kind of right before your soccer era began, but I believe it was the 2016 Champions League final between Atletico Madrid and Real Madrid, which was either 1-1 or 2-2. I think it was 1-1. Sergio Ramos equalized for Real Madrid in stoppage time. They went to extra time and then won on penalties. Um, and it was just a very similar game, similar teams. Obviously, people compare Arteta and Simeone a lot. Um, and I think one thing that stuck out to me, that has stuck out to me throughout the season, is that Arsenal's attack just isn't really good enough. Um, they are an incredibly well disciplined group, and the attackers do an excellent job of supporting the defense, but they're just not really clinical and not creative enough to actually beat a team like PSG on its own terms. Um, but and then I want to open the floor to you as well. I watched that game and said, like, why would you play that game on PSG's terms?
Hmm.
I don't think it's like Bayern did, and they got destroyed. Um, and I think Bayern obviously has a much better attack than we do, but PSG has the best attack in the game. I would honestly be surprised if even a team like Manchester City tried to play PSG at its own game. Um, so that's where I stand at the starting point with just the game itself. I think there are interesting brief cultural lines too. But what did you think of the game as you watched it? Like, do you feel like it was a pretty fair result? Did you find yourself hate watching Arsenal sit in their own box the entire game? Like, where were you at?
Yeah, you and I had texted kind of in the build up to the game, and it was interesting because the game started and kind of followed the exact blueprint that we thought would lead to an Arsenal win. We both kind of agreed that the best case scenario for Arsenal was to score the first goal and then just defend with all your heart, which is pretty much what you did actually, and got that goal in the 6th minute, held on for a really really long time, and then eventually how do you is it Kavicha Kvaratskhelia?
Mm-hmm.
He, got the best of the fullback and won that penalty. I think it was the most obvious penalty I've seen all year, perhaps. I thought that both teams substituted quite poorly, to be honest with you. Particularly Arsenal, bringing on, among other people, like Gabriel Martinelli and Noni Madueke before Arichbe Eze came on. I thought that Paris also substituted very poorly, taking off Kvaratskhelia, who was by far their best player, instead of substituting Dembele or Doué. Um, so I think both teams ended up playing extra time and even taking the penalty kicks without some of their most important attacking players. It is an absolute shame that Arichbe Eze came on in the 90th minute. He should have played a half
Right.
hour. He should have come on at the 60th minute. I would have trusted him to make something happen in 30 minutes of regulation. Didn't happen. I think that's completely inexcusable. So, are there some missed opportunities for Mikel Arteta? I think so. Do I think the result is fair ultimately? Once you go to penalties, it really never feels fair, right?
Right.
Because it stops being football. It stops actually being the game, and so much of that is luck, and so much of that is just chance. Was I hate watching Arsenal? No, I was not. Was I hate watching Gabriel miss his penalty? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I do not like that man. The fact that it was his penalty at the end that cost Arsenal, that was very special to me. I will treasure that forever. I again, the fact that Kai Havertz was not available to take penalties, I think is a shame. He did not play well, but the fact that Leandro Trossard was not available to take, like, you have a lot of players who are good penalty takers. Trossard, Odegaard, Havertz, who started and were not available by the time penalty kicks came around. And I think there's a lot that Mikel Arteta, who put together a great Premier League campaign, I think there's a lot from his um, managed standpoint in this single game that he needs to go back and analyze. Because I do think there were some very, very key substitution errors in a game that, for the most part, was actually played on Arsenal's terms.
I think I agree mostly. I would say that, like, given our load management over the year, it made sense that as the game kind of wore on, our attackers were basically playing two positions the entire game, both on offense and on defense, in a way that PSG's team just doesn't have to. Um, so it made sense, but I agree that Eze should have come on way earlier. Madueke coming on was not, other than the penalty shout, which I don't even feel like getting into. Um,
Yeah.
you know, other than that, I mean, he really was not particularly useful. I expect one thing I will say is I expect a good chunk of our attackers to probably leave this summer.
Hmm.
I think that our bench provides depth, but is not at the quality that Arteta wants. And I think he knows that. I think I expect that to change. I also think, to your point about PSG, their forwards have load managed all year. Dembele has played like half the minutes that Declan Rice has, and yet all of them came off in the Champions League final on the biggest stage. Um, and I don't know. I just thought that was interesting. I was like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
even there, you're still not fit enough to hold out for the entire game. With this being like the one game you wait the entire year for. Um, I do, on the other hand, PSG as a unit is now the repeat, European champions. They're only the second team since the Champions League in its current form started in 1992 to defend their title with Real Madrid, who of course won a three-peat under Zinedine Zidane, the only other team to do that in the last 30 years. Um, it is unquestionably a historically excellent team. In the modern era, it has a unique blend of midfield excellence, solid defense, and just electric forward play. It was remarkable to see the three forwards just interchange constantly throughout the game. Um, we we kind of stopped up their attack mostly, but like still they have been over the last 2 years a dominant force. Um, and I think just briefly, I think it's important to note, obviously Arsenal splashes the cash around, so it's not like we're impoverished. Um, but the PSG Qatari sports washing project has been just at this point universally successful. They built the brand with the stars. They brought in Neymar, they brought in Mbappe, they brought in Ibrahimovic, they brought in Messi, of course. Um, Obviously, that strategy didn't work, but it did expand their brand to be a truly global brand. They, invested well over $1 billion, I believe, at this point. Um, Probably way more, to be honest. Um, their wage bill is huge. They've spent insane amounts of money on transfers, and a few journalists kind of bang the drum every year whenever this happens, saying like, "Look at the sports washing that's still happening, guys. It's still here," but no one cares anymore. And that was what was remarkable to me was like the with the exception of Arsenal fans, the soccer world was hate watching Arsenal on behalf of Qatar this year. And that is a new factor. Like I'm not going to like freak out about it from a partisan perspective, but from the lens of this show, like it has been 100% successful in a way that even Manchester City hasn't fully gotten there yet. But even then, the whole Premier League was rooting for Manchester City this year. So, like, I think that we have reached an interesting point with both these projects that it's become almost a non-conversation at this point.
Yeah, interesting. I think that's true. Um, of course, I think that I was cheering for Arsenal in the Premier League over Manchester
Right,
City, but
right,
not less for more reasons. Just for like I wanted something new.
right.
I wanted parity. I do think that what Qatar has done by bringing PSG to the finally getting over that final hurdle that that Neymar could not and that Mbappe could not and that um and that even Lionel Messi could not is really evidence of the fact that like yes, money goes a long way. It does. But money plus a program is required and a manager, right?
Yes,
Because like Kylian Mbappe went to Real Madrid, who is probably wealthier than PSG, has just as expensive a squad, has even more big name players, and never won a Champions League. And PSG started winning a Champions League like basically immediately after Mbappe left. And so it is the perfect, I think, much like Manchester City, the perfect blend of investment plus executives plus a manager who are really like about doing the work. Like Luis Enrique is now one of the most successful managers of this generation. Like you
genuinely.
really can't make a list like of managers in this era and leave him off of it at the very very top tier. The sporting directors at PSG have obviously fixed whatever issues they had with player recruitment, and they did have issues in the Zlatan and the Messi era, but that's fixed. And now when you combine that with the bottomless resources, you get a sporting juggernaut. And it's a huge. I think it's a huge shot across the bow and a huge warning shot to Barcelona and to Real Madrid and to Bayern Munich and to these other clubs that there are other people that can do this too.
Yeah, and at least like it is a reminder. Like I was looking at the annual wage spend of of most of the big clubs ahead of this show. And like Manchester United has a roughly equivalent annual wage bill to PSG right now.
I
It's
just
like
don't want to hear that.
obviously there are a ton, and PSG has more than Liverpool. Like Arsenal and PSG's wage bill are about the same, but like Manchester United is right there as just as an example, not to pick on you, but like
No, it's fine. Yeah,
there are there are good and bad ways to spend money, is what you're saying, and like you can spend a ton of money sometimes illegally, which PSG has done. We've barely talked about that, but that has also been a part of the PSG story, just like with Manchester City. But the reality is, PSG now and Manchester City over the last decade have had a ton of money, but also have had smart people who are spending it well, and that makes a difference.
yeah. Yeah,
The
makes a huge
PSG project
difference.
is working now.
Yeah. Well, John, I'm very glad that you are able to look back on this season fondly, regardless.
It was a great
Um,
time. I
I
genuinely, it was a great time, and I don't have any regrets. We'll be back.
we're gonna end our podcast again with the World Cup. Let me just say briefly, I really enjoy when 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 teammates who represent a country in the World Cup play for one of their domestic teams together. So the fact that there are like 3 or 4 England starters on the Arsenal team and 3 or 4 very prominent French players on the PSG team, I just personally enjoy and I like that. I think that's cool. So like you're gonna see Saka, Rice, and Eze. You're gonna see them play for England. You're gonna see Dembele, Doué, Barcola play for France here at the World Cup. And I think yeah, that's just personally that's just something I like.
It is something that's actually like special. You're like, oh, you have a connection to your country. Look at that. Imagine
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
And
yeah.
Bayern Munich, actually, to its credit, has always done this a pretty
Yeah.
good job of having
hmm
German players at its core that end up on the German national team. It's still the case today. And that'll be a lot of fun. And it was also a nice moment to see Marquinhos come over to Gabriel at the end of that penalty shootout and console him after his miss, being good Brazilian
Oh,
teammates.
he's gonna need Gabriel to regroup here pretty quick.
Yes, because they're going to be
they
partners right there.
they
Yeah,
need him. Yeah. Really quickly, while we're in France, John, while we're on the subject, let's
chaos.
talk about the French Open. Has there ever been a tennis tournament like this since you and I have started talking about tennis?
I think the answer is just definitively no.
Yeah.
And do you want me to read the stats about why?
Please, please.
I compiled some stats. So this is the first slam in a long, long time that Carlos Alcaraz or Yannick Sinner is not going to win. And that is because Carlos Alcaraz is not at the French Open at all because he, if you've missed this, has a wrist injury and is not playing this tournament or Wimbledon. So he's out for a good bit. Yannick Sinner lost in a 5-setter. He's out. Novak Djokovic is out. And that means that we are in uncharted territory, like completely uncharted territory. The last slam not won by Alcaraz or Sinner was 10 slams ago in 2023 when Novak Djokovic beat Daniel Medvedev in a rematch of the final. He lost to Medvedev in 2021. That was 3 years ago that Alcaraz or Sinner didn't win a slam. And that was still Novak. In the 14 slams since Carlos first won the US Open in 2022, 4 years ago, he has won 7, Sinner has won 4, Novak has won 3. No one else has won any. The last person not named any of those names was Daniel Medvedev in 2021,
Who is also out of this tournament?
who is also out of this tournament. Like, what is going on?
It's crazy. Like it is so many players like had the opportunity in what is the most open now field in like you said in the last half decade. And so many players are going to be beating themselves up over the fact that they crashed out. Taylor Fritz lost in the first round. Ben Shelton went out disappointingly. Like a lot of these players, Stefanos Tsitsipas went out. Like Casper Ruud went out. Like all of these players who you would think, oh, if there's no Sinner, no Alcaraz, no no Shel yeah, no Sinner, no Alcaraz, no Djokovic, no Medvedev. This is my time. Francis Tiafoe, Taylor Fritz, Ben Shelton, just to name the Americans, would have all thought if those 4 people are out, I have as good of a shot as anybody to win the tournament. And they have all gone out. The only person left who is ranked in the top 5 are Zverev and Felix Auger-Aliassime, who have both never won slams.
Which is just insane. Matteo Berrettini, in theory, could win this slam. Which, like, what timeline is this?
I believe Matteo Berrettini is the only Grand Slam champion, or like winner of any slam left in this.
He's won a slam? Surely not.
Hasn't he?
I don't think he has. There's no way that's true. I don't think there are any slam winners left.
Oh,
I
you're
wish
right. He reached the Wimbledon final.
I
And
wish
lost.
he
That's
won.
right.
I
That's
wish
right.
he won a slam.
No, he reached the 2021 Wimbledon
Yes.
final. Yeah, but did not win. So there is no winner of a major championship in this quarterfinal.
I would like to correct myself as well. The last non winner of those three was actually Rafael Nadal in 2022, who won the French Open. Which, like, how is that? He won a slam 4 years ago.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that's crazy. Anyway, and then Medvedev was 2 slams before that, but I
Um,
digress.
obviously the most notable exit was Sinner.
Yes.
I would like to spend a moment here. Sinner was leading his match 2-0 and up 5-1 in the third set. He then lost 6 straight games to lose the third set, and then went on to lose the other 2 sets. He was completely physically compromised by just severe cramping. Some of the statistics are the fact that like Sinner is absolutely horrible in matches that go to 5 sets. He also has a horrible record in any match that goes over 3 hours and 40 minutes. He basically never wins a match that goes over that gets close toward 4 hours. And I saw a lot of articles being written. I sent a couple to you saying like tennis has a heat problem because of how hot it is in Paris. To me, the only person who has a really consistent temperature problem is Yannick Sinner, who this happens to all the time. Like we have not seen Carlos Alcaraz or Novak or other people have this kind of consistent physical problem when dealing with warmer temperatures. But still, given just the complete chaos at this tournament, maybe it is worth wondering if the conditions are a factor, because there have been so many notable big name players crashing out that there really is no other like consistent factor I can think of that's causing this.
Yeah, it is interesting. And from what I was seeing, the French Open, a lot of the questions around this have been because the French Open has less like heat controls than some of the other tournaments. Like if it gets too hot, the French Open does a lot less to stop games or give people breaks or anything like that. So some of those questions, tennis always has. I feel like there's always some kind of drama with like tennis scheduling or tennis breaks or things like that, tennis curfews. Like it's like strangely a very like dramatic sport about its organization, in a way that I just always find funny at different times. But I think there's a genuine question, like what is it just a bad time for all the big players, or is there something more serious going on? I don't know. Um, Obviously, Novak is just aging. Like I think this is just going to keep happening. He is not, him going out early is pointing to the tides turning against Novak finally. This is the first time I feel like where I'm like, oh, you're not really putting up a fight the same way you did. So that's just something to note. Obviously, Carlos is gone, which just changes the whole complexion of this tournament. Um, I think we need to talk, before we talk about the women, which I want to talk about briefly, I think we need to talk about a red alert situation for this podcast.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
The odds-on favorite to win the French Open on the men's side is now Alexander Zverev, enemy of the podcast.
And known enemy of the podcast.
He has done so by playing four unranked and unseeded players, and then today he beat the number 27 seed. Is it Rafael Hodar? Is that his name? What is his full name? Yes, Rafael Hodar, the young player from France who is 19 years old, or from Spain who is 19 years old. If Alexander Zverev wins this tournament, of course I will call it fraudulent and I will not count it in the Chad Wiley record book, given how soft his path to this final has been so far, and how soft it will continue to be. Like I said, the only other player in the top five, seeded player in the top five, is Felix Auger-Aliassime, who is seeded number 4. But like, it's very possible that he might play like you said, Matteo Berrettini, unseeded Matteo Berrettini in the final, and I'm just not buying it, and I don't accept it. And I would like to preemptively say that just like with Kevin Durant's NBA championships with the Warriors, and just like with Bam Adebayo's 83 points, if this happens, it does not count. It's not a slam.
If, on the other hand, Matteo Berrettini beats Alexander Zverev in the French Open final, it will be the greatest sporting accomplishment of all time.
It would be the most Grand Slam of all time.
Yeah. We don't have
I
double
will
standards on this show
I
at
will
all.
personally write a thank you note to any player who beats Alexander Zverev from here on out. In fact, I should do more than that. I should send like a small token of appreciation
I think you
to
should.
any.
I don't know what it's going to be, but I would like you to.
Yeah. Anyone from here on out who can beat Alexander Zverev is a hero of the pod forever.
That's just objectively true. Jakub
Um,
Mensik, it's
do
over
it.
to you.
Come on. So yeah, that would just be, of course, anyone who listens to this podcast knows that that is an unacceptable outcome that we do not believe in here.
It would be calamitous, genuinely. I
Hmm.
can't have it. So anyway,
Yeah.
that's important. On the women's side, it's also been strange, which does make me think, like, is something going on here? Iga Swiatek went out to Marta Kostyuk. Elena Rybakina lost relatively early. Coco Gauff went out relatively early, who was the defending champion. So all that's left is Arina Sabalenka, who does really like to rise to the occasion when everyone else crashes out. She handled Naomi Osaka pretty well. That was a fun match. It was also the first women's nightcap match in a long time at the French Open, which is, you know, that's often one of the dramatic elements in the tennis scene. Is the French Open does not seem to like to give women's matches that nightcap moment, but they're really left with no choice given that all the men that are left are crap. And this was a real top bill match. So finally, they made the right choice.
Don't
Even though
speak
this
about my
format,
man Felix Auger-Aliassime that way.
I think if Felix wins a slam, it'll be like one of the most miraculous accomplishments of all time.
At this point I would take it.
Yeah.
At this point, man, it's him or Zverev. I take it.
So anyway, given where we're at, I would be shocked if Sabalenka does not win this tournament. She is playing well. She's in kind of, I feel like in some ways she and Sinner are similar players in that they're big hitting players who do in general like to take advantage of weaker players being left in the draw. Sinner obviously did not do that this time, but Sabalenka likes to pounce when other people are weak. And that is definitely my prediction. But my gut on the men's side is concerned. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah, yeah. We will try to squeeze in a little bit of conversation about this. Of course, depending on how we'll talk about it. I would just like to say, like, after the World Cup, when we kind of catch up on other sports stories that we missed, I will bring up, we will talk about Serena Williams, her potential unretirement. Well, it is like officially she is unretired from professional tennis, and we're gonna have to talk about that. But again, might have to save that for after the summer, when we do a things I missed during the World Cup episode. But that'll be good.
It's going to be exciting. It's a big move for her. So
Yeah, yeah.
hopefully she does well.
Lastly, John, tomorrow the NBA Finals starts, and as I mentioned, the other part of that hate watching doubleheader was when the entire world came together to cheer for yet another Frenchman. This one is not Ousmane Dembele or the French Open, but Victor Wembanyama, who, along with the San Antonio Spurs, completely dismantled the Oklahoma City Thunder in what is just the most wonderful Game 7 I've seen in quite a while. The only team I think more universally hated than the Arsenal is the Oklahoma City Thunder. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is a flopper. It's obvious. We all know it. Victor Wembanyama, who should have won regular season MVP this year and was robbed by Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, showed that he is the real and legitimate MVP. He is the best player in basketball. He is 22 years old. He was born in 2004,
That's the worst.
and he will be playing in the NBA Finals with a really, really, really good shot to win. He'll be going against Timothy Chalamet and the New York Knicks. No, not really. He'll be going against Jalen Brunson and the New York Knicks, with, I'm sure, Timothy Chalamet in full attendance. And it's going to be an awesome final. I really like. I don't know who to cheer for, John. I feel good about both these teams.
I just feel like Wemby could like pick up Jalen Brunson and put him under his arm and just leave the stadium, to be honest. Like, I just don't know how this is going to go.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. The Knicks, just to give the Knicks a little bit of love for a second, made it to the Eastern Finals last year. They were a scrappy team at the time. They kind of got some lucky wins throughout that playoff run, if I'm remembering correctly, but they made it and then lost to the Pacers, who then kind of fell apart due to an injury crisis in the finals against the Thunder last year, which is what resulted in the Thunder winning the championship. So the Knicks now are back. They've made it one step further. Karl Anthony Towns has come into the team. It is a team that is playing well. It is disciplined. Um, they have impressed me throughout this playoff run. And the question is, like, are they a good enough team that they can deal with the presumptive NBA champions, the San Antonio Spurs? Because I think a lot of people were treating this Thunder Spurs game as the basically de facto NBA finals. Um, so it's over to the Knicks, to prove them wrong, which I think is, it's a good spot for a team to have that chip on your shoulder, to be an underdog, to feel like, we're a really, really good team. People are underrating us. But at the same time, like, what are they? Karl Anthony Towns versus Wembanyama is not a fight that I would relish if I was the New York Knicks.
Yeah. I'm going to pick the San Antonio Spurs in 6 games. If you told me, like, I could definitely see a path for the Knicks to win. I think the Knicks are a really good team. In many ways, I think they're a more like cohesive team than the Spurs are. Just like their core has had more time together, and the Spurs are so young. But Victor Wembanyama is a matchup that nobody can handle. Not a single team in the NBA can match up well against Victor Wembanyama. There's just nobody in the NBA who's ever been like him before.
Right.
And he's a very, very unique player, a unique body type, a unique skill set. And like I said, he's the best player in the world right now. Like, it was Jokic for a while. We thought, like, is it going to be Luka? Is it going to be, Anthony Edwards? Is it going to be SGA? It is with Victor Wembanyama. Like, right now, people need to get on that program.
Which is just a unique moment for basketball. Um, we are entering a time where the future of basketball is truly global in a way that's like more the case than it ever has been. You mentioned those names: Luka, Nikola, Wemby. Like, a lot of the names at the top of the game that we look at and we're like, these are the talent of the future. They're not coming through college basketball. Like, these are European players that are coming through European systems and then making it big in the NBA. And I think that's cool. It is a benefit to the NBA that it is, the best basketball league in the world, while also being, a place that can take in players from all over the world. And I don't think we've really talked about the potential like NBA Europe situation that's happening, but we should at some point, because I think that will be a very interesting attempt to expand American sports into Europe in a really sizable way for really the first time ever. The NFL has talked about it for a long time, but it's never happened. The NBA, though, in some ways, its relevance is less important than it ever has been. In other ways, has a bigger pull than it ever has, which I think is just fascinating in the age of social media.
Yeah. Another fascinating thing in the age of social media is how many celebrities are just very insecure because of what Timothy Chalamet has done over this
That's true.
playoffs. We saw Ben Stiller have to quite aggressively defend his decision to attend the Met Gala instead of the Knicks game after Chalamet appeared at the Knicks game, and really, really put all the other Knicks fans kind of in the hot seat. And then, other very, very famous people who are so threatened by Chalamet that they're coming to NBA games and we've never seen them before. Like, Taylor Swift is like trying to try to step in Timothy Chalamet's corner and showed up to a game 3 in Cleveland with Travis Kelce. Of course, the Cavs lost. No surprise there. And Chalamet turned up in Cleveland for game 4 and got the brooms out. And now, John, even Donald Trump is talking about making a courtside appearance at a Knicks game here in the finals. And I would just say, like, these people are just trying to chase Chalamet, and they're not catching him.
No, they always are. Everyone's chasing Chalamet. We've been
Yeah,
saying this for a long time. We hold this
yeah,
stock. This is
yeah.
like Nvidia stock for this podcast, and it is only going up.
So yeah, I'm excited to see what the energy that Chalamet brings to the NBA Finals, and I hope that he gets a picture of Wembanyama because that'd be a really funny height difference as well.
What I'm really excited for is the pics of Timmy at the World Cup at France
Mm.
games, because that's going to happen, guaranteed.
That's gonna be really good as well. He's really in like he's an ambassador for sports and an ambassador for cinema.
I'm
Um,
predicting that sighting already because it is 100% going to happen.
Crunchy Tackles is very thankful for your support for sports, Timothy. Thank you. Speaking of John, the
Here.
beautiful game, we are back in the World Cup. Um, since we are treating our last episode as like our preview show.
Yes.
So if you want to hear kind of our picks for who's going to win, as well as some of like the insights that we have in terms of what to watch, our last episode in the feed covers a lot of that. But we did want to check in on a few things, including some notes for some rule changes or rule enhancements for this time, as well as some of the squad announcements that have come out since we last podcasted, as well as just check in on kind of where we're at in the storylines. I want to mention again that we have our World Cup prediction group on the website pick26.com. I will again put the link to our group in the show notes of this episode. I will also put it out on my social media. So if you have not yet, you can join our group. You can predict every game in the group stage and the score. And we're going to have a lot of fun competing against each other in that. And then once the knockout round starts, there'll be a bracket that people can pick for that as well. So make sure that you join our group. It's going to be a lot of fun. But John, um, since we last podcasted, we have seen the not only the USMNT roster, but we've also seen a US game, and we're going to talk about that. But first, I think we need to be aware of the fact that like maybe for some of our audience, this is like the first time that they're going to experience soccer. Maybe they listen to our podcast for other things, they're US based, and they don't watch a lot of soccer, but the World Cup is here. It's going to be readily available, and they want to tune in. So what I think we want to do is kind of just give a really quick, maybe just a little bit of a primer about the World Cup formatting, about things to watch, and then maybe we'll get into a few more specific headlines after that.
Yes, absolutely. Um, we are excited that you're here. First of all, the World Cup is the best show on earth. I
It's
firmly
for
believe that.
everyone.
It is for everyone. It is, I firmly believe, better than the Olympics, and the Olympics are awesome. But the World Cup is like genuinely nothing else. It is a party. It is a battle. You will, if you live in the States, if you're, especially if you're in a host city, like you'll encounter people from all over the world. And it is just genuinely the coolest thing ever. Um, Americans often, I think, feel conflicted about soccer and the World Cup because I think they have mixed feelings about the U.S. being bad to mediocre at something, which is an understandable feeling. And we'll talk about kind of what we expect from the U.S. as well as other host countries in a little bit here. But first, just a little bit about the format. Um, so we will have 48 teams for the first time ever at this World Cup. This is a significant expansion from the previous format of, I believe, 32 teams. There will be 12 groups of four, and each team, you basically play all the members of your group once. So each team plays 3 games in the group stages. You get 3 points for a win, 1 point for a tie, and 0 points if you lose the game, obviously. And then once the group stage is done, the top 2 teams in each group advance. So that's 24 teams. And then 8 of the third place teams, so 8 out of the 12 third place teams will advance. They'll be, ranked separately. And then they will also go into the first round of the playoffs for a round of 32. Then from there will be a round of 32, a round of 16, quarterfinals, semifinals, final, all single elimination. So we will basically have 2 weeks of the group stages, and then the rest of this tournament, which will go until, I believe, July 19th, will be all knockouts for the first time ever, which is going to be a pretty big change. They're adding a whole nother round of playoffs to this. So there's a lot to play for. I'd say, as we kind of start off talking about where things are at. Like there will be some weaker teams in this tournament than there have been in the past, which could create an opportunity for some, some big teams to, have a little fun. But it could also create opportunities for, with those third place spots opening up for the first time, there's an opportunity for some teams that maybe we wouldn't expect to make it into the knockouts. Have a little bit of a surprise. You grab a win somewhere, and then all of a sudden, you climb up that third place ranking. So there are opportunities for teams like a Scotland, who maybe you'd worry about advancing from the group, to actually kind of make a mark for themselves in advance. I think that gives me hope for the U.S. as well, no matter what happens. But we'll get to that in a second. I don't know. Did you have any other thoughts about format, introducing soccer, the joy of the World Cup for first time listeners?
Yeah, I would say, just to add this thing. So knockout rounds are single elimination. Um, the way if they are tied at the end of 90 minutes, there will be a 30-minute extra time and then overtime and then penalty kicks, and that's true for every knockout round, I believe, that they
Yes.
would go to 30
Yes.
minutes of extra time and then penalty kicks. Um, let me yeah, in terms of like introducing soccer, I think one of the things that people will find is especially compared to American sports is just you get almost 45 minutes of uninterrupted action. There is not like the constant TV timeouts or commercial breaks that you experience in football or in the NBA or in hockey. And generally, like for a group stage game, the entire experience is done in 2 hours. So it's quick. It's faster than a baseball game. It's faster than a basketball game. It's faster than a football game by more than an hour. So it's a I think it's a really fun from that perspective, just viewing experience. It keeps your attention locked in for a consistent amount of time, and it never feels like it's dragging, and that's a lot of fun. So I think people will appreciate that if you haven't actually sat down and watched a full match before. Of course, if you're a US based listener, I would love to introduce you briefly to your team. Um, John's got his jersey on. I had mine on last week. I'm wearing a different jersey now because you can cheer for multiple countries. That's okay. We all do in certain ways,
We
but
certainly do.
um, the U.S. team is the squad came out, John, and I think it is in many ways like the best case scenario for what the U.S. men's team could be. There are you might cool. Yeah. What's your reaction to me saying that?
So I would say that this is the best case scenario for the players that are probably available right now, but not the best case scenario of what this USA team could have been in an alternate reality.
So who's missing?
Oh no! I just mean the play, even just like the form of the players throughout this.
Sure, sure.
Like the careers that I hoped a lot of these players would have not panned out in the way that I would have hoped if we had talked 4 years ago.
Sure, but like I think the names are the right names.
Yes, I agree. The names are the right
Um,
names.
Interestingly, I think you could argue that the player who has been named the captain, Tim Ream, might be one of the weakest players on the team.
Unquestionably.
Tim Ream is a defender for Charlotte FC in the MLS. He's also an older player. He did start and play like every minute of the 2022 World Cup, in which the USA did we underperform or did we like perform to
I think we
expectations?
performed
Yeah,
expectations. That
yeah,
was a team that went to the round of 16. It made it out of the group and then lost to a Netherlands team that was much better.
much. Yeah, okay. I think that's right. So Tim Ream is back. He has been named by Mauricio Pochettino as the captain of the team. The actual like face of the team is AC Milan forward Christian Pulisic, who is in August I saw in person in Milan. So that's a fun moment for me. He did, at least in the first half of the season, was extremely bright. Goals, assists. He was playing meaningful minutes for a top tier Italian team. Um, Second half of the season, not as successful. He is going to be joined by Weston McKennie, who also plays in Italy, and Tyler Adams, who plays in the Premier League, has been injury prone this year, but has been very, very good um, when healthy for a very, very good Bournemouth team in the Premier League. I think one of the most shocking selections was the selection of Gio Reyna, who, if you listened to us 4 years ago on the podcast, if you've been listening to us for that long, you're aware of a significant controversy between the Reyna family and the then head coach of the U.S. men's national team, Greg Berhalter. Gio Reyna then kind of disappeared from the men's team
Right.
for a while and has reemerged as like he started in the friendly against Senegal. It seems like he's going to be playing meaningful minutes for the team, and he's doing so on the same squad as one of Greg Berhalter's children. So I don't know how that's going to go, but he was, I think, for a while perceived as perhaps like the most talented player on the U.S. men's national team for a while. And talk about someone who has not quite lived up to it as a club player. It has not worked out for him as well as when he was like starting games for Borussia Dortmund and was amazing. But interesting to see him back. I think that's one of the most fascinating selections for this team.
It is interesting. And I think that when I look at this team, there are good players who play for good teams in Europe. Like that is just an objective fact now. And it's not in the past it was sort of like it was McKennie, Pulisic, and Reyna, and then a bunch of other guys. But like those were the guys that we were kind of like, oh wow, we have players in Europe now. That's really not the case anymore. Like there are a large amount of players on this team who do play in Europe. They're not just MLS players who make the majority of this roster. Tim Ream, who's 38, like Tim Ream should not be starting. He should not be captaining. I'm just going to come out and say it. Like he is not good enough at this point to be playing at this level. He wasn't good enough in the 2022 World Cup to be playing.
Yeah, I think Tyler Adams should be the captain,
Yeah,
personally.
Tyler Adams should be the captain. Tim Ream just genuinely like has no place, and I'll eat my words if he has the tournament of his life, but like it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
He looked, the U.S. beat Senegal 3-2 this last weekend. They got trounced by Belgium and Portugal. Anytime I've seen him play, he has not looked up to the level that we need him to be at, and so we'll see what happens. A lot of talk has happened around Chris Richards, who is a starting center back for Crystal Palace in the Premier League. He is in the prime of his career. He's done really, really well, at a very high level. And he also is suffering from an ankle injury that, is putting his entire World Cup status in jeopardy. So to me, like him being fit and playing in the World Cup could be a really big deal, and people are talking about that. But I don't think he's the only question mark. I think, to me, one of the biggest question marks is, can our offense, including Christian Pulisic and Folarin Balogun, who plays in Ligue 1, and then whoever ends up playing on the other wing, can they
Tim
really,
Weah,
probably
from
Weah,
my perspective, Tim Weah.
right? Pochettino sometimes plays him a wing back too, so it's just kind of like, what is going to happen there? Can our offense, generate meaningful goals and chances against a relatively difficult group? It's Portugal, Australia, and Turkey. Turkey, I expect to win the group, to be honest. Like, just
Not
my, like,
Portugal. Not Portugal.
Paraguay. Did I say Portugal?
Paraguay. Yeah.
Paraguay, Australia, and Turkey. Portugal, that would be
Yeah.
a nightmare. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I expect Turkey to probably win the group, and I think the USA can finish second in this group. But we need our midfield to be organized, and we need our offense to actually like contribute meaningful moments. I think they can do it. I think they can rise to the occasion. But this team is going to need to perform very differently from the way it has over the last 4 years. And that's ultimately the question to me, is like, do these players really want to win, or is this the same USA that we've seen over and over?
Yeah. Yeah. I think part of what you talked about of like finding offense also comes from the fullback position.
Yes.
And to me, that's a position of strength for us. We have Anthony Robinson who plays for Fulham, and Serginho Dest, who, when I last saw him, was playing for Barcelona. I don't
He's
know
at
where he is
PSV. I
now.
think at PSV Eindhoven,
Yeah. But those are two players who, at times have been excellent, and those are positions kind of on the edges of the field where they frequently come into the attack,
yes.
and they both are, I think, in many ways, attacking minded fullbacks, and so I think they're going to be critical. I'll be interested to see how close the eventual starting lineup is to from the Senegal game is to what the actual team is going to look like. I think there are choices between Gio Reyna and Timothy Weah, things like that, who's going to play winger and things like that. But ultimately, I do agree with you that like to me the the metric of success for the USA I think is the round of 16.
Yes.
Um, which is what I mean, which is what it was, which is where we got to last time. You would like to see it go farther, but I think anything less than that would be considered somewhat of a failure. And round of 16 would kind of be expectation, and a quarterfinal or a semifinal would be frankly great for where we're at as a country. Um, if there, it seems like regardless of how well the U.S. men's national team does, John, we couldn't even get to the first game before our manager is already talking about leaving. And this is something that I've been talking about for months and my unhappiness with Mauricio Pochettino. Um, I said to you that Greg Berhalter should come back as the manager. I don't think I actually mean that, but I do feel like he has treated this country and this team very disrespectfully from the very beginning. And the fact that he has already been reported to be speaking with clubs to start managing in August before this World Cup even starts is, you know, confirmation of what I already knew, which is that he views this national team job as a stepping stone to get back into Europe domestic management. I think most people suspected that or were aware of that fact, but the fact that he's doing it so shamelessly before the tournament even starts, um, I'm deeply unhappy with him. Just to be honest, I really am not happy with how this has gone.
I think that's fine. I think to me, him talking to other clubs is a non-issue. I never expected him to stay after the World Cup. So that doesn't really shock me. Um, I agree though that he has not been respectful to the U.S. just in general. Like, I don't think he has made any effort to embrace the culture of the country in any meaningful way, embrace the fans in any meaningful way. Like, he clearly doesn't care, and that's fine because ultimately U.S. Soccer hired him to do a job. He's a professional, um, and if he gets the country over the line, and creates a meaningful opportunity for the U.S. to advance far, then fine. Thomas Tuchel clearly does not really care about the England fans either, and people complain about it, but ultimately, like, if England wins the World Cup, no one will care. That is, I think, kind of the issue with hiring a national manager that is not from your country. Like, you are not hiring someone to represent your country; you're hiring someone to coach your team to win. Um, so I hear you. I have not liked his presence, but
I'm just saying, if he's going to have his agent talk to teams now, it's not too late for the U.S. to offer like 20 million to Pep Guardiola.
that's
It's
true.
not too if
You're
we
right.
it's not too late to make a change. We have 9 days left. What is
Here,
to stop us from making a last ditch call to Pep Guardiola and be like, Pep, we're gonna reach into the coffers, we're gonna pull out some money. Will you come in and manage this team for the World Cup? I would support that personally.
I fear that most of our players would not be able to intake Pep's instructions
Oh,
quickly enough
100%
to
true.
translate to the pitch. But
I would feel better about it though.
I
I'll
would
tell you
too.
that.
Tyler Adams would do well. Um,
Yeah.
Here's the thing: Mauricio Pochettino has a really important job ahead of him, and here's why. If I'm right, and Turkey wins this group, and the USA finishes second, we will play the second place team in Belgium's group in the round of 32.
Ooh.
The second place team in Belgium's group, if Belgium wins the group, will most likely be either Egypt or Iran. As I've gamed it out, there is a real possibility that if we finish second and Iran finishes second in their group, which it's highly predicted that Iran will play in this World Cup, we could play Iran in the round of 32, which means that the round of 16 is the bare minimum for not being tarred and feathered as national team coach on your way out the door.
You've absolutely stunned me, John.
This is big news.
This is would this be the most important American sporting event in like decades?
Since Miracle? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, since the Miracle on Ice. The most politically charged soccer game since the 1980 hockey game.
Yes.
Wow. Wow, you really shocked me with that.
It will
That's
be the
that's
biggest,
amazing.
like, not to make light of this, but like, we could have a resumption of hostilities if things go wrong.
just a massive TV numbers that would do.
Yes. And
Wow,
we've played them recently.
wow,
The thing is,
yeah.
we've played Iran in the World Cup, I believe, in 2018,
Hmm.
or what? Maybe it was 22. I think it was 2022,
Yeah,
right?
2022.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yep.
so.
So we played Iran at the last World Cup. Obviously, things are in much
Things
more
are
intense
different.
circumstances now. That would be, I think, just like the most politically charged World Cup game, like World Cup game period, in
Yeah,
that I can ever remember, to be honest.
yeah. In my lifetime. Wow,
Yeah.
that's awesome. I'm kind of rooting for that to happen
Yeah.
now. And yeah, yeah. If the USA loses to Iran in the round of 32, um, we might just have to stop playing soccer. We might just need to just like turn off the lights at USMNT headquarters and just quit.
Yeah, I think that would be the end of the program.
Yeah. Wow. So I mean, you did segue. It's like Iran's gonna play.
Yes.
Let's just say that part. Like it
It was
seems
almost
like
guaranteed. Yeah.
I was convinced 3 months ago that there was 0% chance this happens.
Yeah.
It seems like Gianni Infantino has pressured Donald Trump, and somehow I don't know how I still don't know how, like, geopolitically they're going to bring a delegation from Iran while there are active negotiations to stop us from bombing their country. But okay, I
The
mean,
base camp has been moved to Mexico, but they will be playing in
okay,
the US. So that is kind
okay,
of the big update.
okay. Wow. I mean, that we could do a whole podcast just on that. Okay, so that's exciting. That there is, all the teams who I think it was important that all the teams who qualified do get to come. I think that
Yes.
was always an important priority. I'm glad that's going to happen. I'm going to briefly talk about just a couple things that are going to happen from a rules perspective that are kind of different. They're really cracking down. So, like, these are all rules that have always existed, but the referee, like the FIFA Federation, has communicated that some rules are going to be given particular emphasis for this World Cup. One of those rules is about time wasting through like delaying the restart of play. So whether it's a goal kick or a sideline throw in, usually kind of like teams might take their time, kind of like mosey up to the ball, take a few seconds, reset. It seems like that's not going to happen. It seems like they're going to be doing an aggressive, like 5 second count, and then we'll be yellow carding any player who continues beyond that point. Also, there will be a big decentive on faking injuries because any injury that requires medical treatment on the field is going to require that player to go off the field for a minimum of 1 minute of actual game time. So the team will be temporarily down a man anytime a player has an injury that requires the trainers to come out on the field. They also are going to be implementing video review or some sort of assisted system to determine whether corner kicks were given correctly. And then they're also going to be allowing video replay on second yellow cards that become red cards. Those will actually be a second yellow card will actually be a reviewable VAR decision. I know you wanted to talk a bit more about the kind of like the corner kicks and how they're going to be analyzing the ball movement.
Yes. Yeah. Just briefly, just since you brought it up, the Athletic did a piece on the technological updates that are happening at the World Cup this year, which often things are kind of rolled out. Like I think it was 2014, they brought in goal line technology, which is now just like a normal part of the game in every league. But it was new back then. So there is now a chip in the ball that is constantly scanning and updating, and it can identify which players touched it. And that is going to be used for corners to basically instantaneously kind of confirm that the referees made the right decision if a corner was granted. They also will be using a kind of goal line technology esque um, kind of like recreation system using cameras that will be able to determine if a goal is scored, that the ball went out of play. So that famously, Japan had a goal that was really, really close to the ball going out against Germany last tournament. So there will now be a kind of a semi-automated system that will be helping assist in that decision and verifying that the ball actually crossed the line or didn't cross the line. So it's not exactly goal line technology, but pretty similar. And then offside, much like in the Champions League, will continue to be semi-automated as well. So there will be some things like with obscuring the view of the goalkeeper or like more complicated offside decisions where, people will be very much involved, and they will continue to be. But there will kind of be an automated check instead of having, the tedious line drawing that used to happen. Like, there will be chips in the ball, there will be chips in players, like, and I believe in their uniforms. And also just like a video system that is going to help with making this much faster. So the hope is that VAR stoppages will continue to decrease over time rather than increase, which has been not always the case in the last year.
Well, I think soccer has really been in the middle of the balance between accuracy and speed.
Mm-hmm.
And so the whole purpose of VAR was to be more accurate, to get decisions correct. But the side effect of that has been, as we've seen for the last 4 or 5 years, just a very tedious slowdown in moments of the games where replays might go on for 4 or 5 minutes in the worst cases. And so whatever they can do to strike the balance there, because it's critical to get it right, but it's also critical when when you have the world spotlight, it's critical to be efficient and to make this an entertaining and enjoyable product for the diehard fans like us, as well as the casual fans who are only watching once every 4 years. And so hopefully this helps with that. Um, any final thoughts on the World Cup, John? I think the next time we podcast, we will have already begun the festivities.
The World Cup will be here. Like
Yeah,
we'll be rocking.
yeah,
I'm just thrilled. Like there is nothing like that first game kicking off, and all of a sudden you're like, the festival is on. Every single game matters. You know, no matter how small the team is, like every goal matters to each team. And I have my collection of jerseys ready to go. I will watch so many games. Um, I will recreate games in FIFA as often as possible. It's going to be a great time. There is nothing like World Cup season.
yeah. It all kicks off on Thursday, June 11th at 3 p.m. Eastern Time with Mexico and South Africa. So that's the beginning. John, when are you going to be at a game? What date is
I will
that?
be at a game on June 21st in Atlanta for Spain versus Saudi Arabia. Katie and I are going. Um, she got us tickets as the absolutely awesome wife that she is, and I am very, very, very excited. It is going to be an incredible experience. Hopefully,
Yeah,
um,
you're,
I'm
hopefully
I'm
we get
I'm
we get
rooting
a
for a
good time.
Mikel Merino appearance. As the Arsenal lad that I am. Um, and I also received a very generous male Spain jersey gift from Chad, which I want to give a shout out to uh, in the last week. So I'm very excited to wear that to this game. Everyone
Yeah,
will get to
I
see it.
couldn't
Yeah.
I couldn't have any of the good people of Atlanta thinking that you were cheering for Saudi Arabia. So I just wanted to make clear, through its hire, which side you're going to be on.
If I
I thought that
do,
was important.
I appreciate it very much. If I do get a photo with Mohammed bin Salman, we will know which team I'm rooting for through the jersey, which is, I think, really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And John, I think we're excited to be able to say that our intention is to bring weekly podcasts for the duration of
Yes.
the World Cup. Probably shorter podcasts, but more frequent. I think the goal would be to start that around June 16, which would be about 5 days into the tournament, and then go weekly on Tuesday or Wednesday, kind of midweek. The only caveat in that is that at some point during this World Cup, I will be becoming a father.
Which is
Which
very
I've
exciting.
mentioned.
I
Yeah,
think you
I've
have.
mentioned
Yes, you
that
have.
once before, but that's going to happen hopefully at some point during this tournament. And so, of course, my paternity leave will feature just a tremendous amount of soccer intake as well as some fun podcasting with you. But of course, a hospital visit is gonna, could potentially mess up the schedule of recording, which is why I don't want to like commit exactly to when we're gonna do it. But it is our intention to be consistent and weekly, um, and also at some point in this process, my wonderful wife Megan and I will be welcoming a new life into the world, which is shocking and wonderful, and it's gonna be a real event, a personal adventure as well.
It is going to be an awesome month for us, for the show, for the Wiley family. Um, and I'm very excited. We're going to experience the World Cup final together
We are,
to end this tournament. So it's going to be a great
yeah,
time. Follow along with us on all the social medias as well, because we will be very active indeed
of course,
in many
yeah.
ways.
Final housekeeping. Like I said, join our group. for World Cup predictions. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. Make sure you're following along with our social medias. We've seen a huge kind of jump in like interactions with our vertical social media content as the World Cup is getting underway. I upset many Moroccan people by saying that they were a two-tier team. I stand by it, but I understand why they feel good about their team's chances this year. So, yeah, please do interact with us on social media, and you can comment on the podcast. And we'll be back in just a couple weeks with our first World Cup recap episode. And until then, we hope you all continue to be well and be safe, and we'll talk to you later.
All right. Cheers, guys.